Hi there, I'm Miss Jenny. Today I'm going to teach you how to make kale chips. So, kale chips of course are made from kale, which is a leaf. You might feel a little bit nervous to eat a crispy leaf, but kale chips are so delicious. Even if you don't like raw kale, I want you to try these kale chips. I have a third grade global gardener who said that these kale chips are even better than potato chips. So you'll have to try them and let me know if you agree. Step 1, let's gather all our materials. So we need our kale, our oil, and our salt and pepper. And of course we'll need an adult to help with the oven part. Anytime we're gonna cook, what's the very first thing we do? Wash our hands. So go to your sink, wash your hands super well, lots of soap, lots of warm water, scrub them really well. Make sure your hands are super clean because we're gonna be touching our food. Once our hands are washed, let's turn on the oven. Ask your parents' permission before you do this part. We wanna set it to 425 degrees. Now ovens take a little bit to get hot, so while that is heating up, we're gonna get our kale ready to go in. Next, we're gonna wash our kale. Some of this kale came from our gardens at Global Gardens, and some came from the store. But wherever your food comes from, you should always wash it before you use it. So let's fill up our sink with some cold water, swish it around, make sure you get all the dirt and random stuff off of your kale. And then we're gonna dry it off. Maybe shake it a little bit, maybe pat it dry with a towel. We just want to make sure it's good and dry because we're going to put oil on this kale, and oil and water don't like each other. So if the kale is still wet, then the oil won't stick right, and then our chips won't get crispy. So let's make sure our kale is good and dry, and then we're going to rip it into pieces. So see this little rib, this stem part in the middle? That part is really tough, and it stays tough no matter how long you cook it. So we want to rip the leaf part off of the stem. And then each piece, we just want to make it into kind of a shorter or a smaller piece. We don't want them too small because it shrinks a little bit in the oven, but if it's too huge, then it's hard to get in your mouth once it's cooked. Now we're gonna pour our oil on. I used 2 tablespoons for this, which actually was maybe a little bit too much, but you have 2 tablespoons in your container. So use the oil in your container and drizzle it all over. And then we're gonna use our hands. We're gonna use our hands to smush it all around the kale. We want every piece of kale coated in a little bit of oil. You can kind of smush it around the pan to pick up what's on the pan and just rub it all together. We don't want to be too harsh with this because we don't want to smash the kale and bruise it. We just want to make sure it's good and coated. Next, you're gonna spread out the kale all over your pan. I like to use the biggest baking sheet I have because your kale shouldn't touch each other. If it's touching, then it'll get kind of soft and wiggly, but it won't really get crispy. So we want to spread them out. And if you can't fit all of your kale onto one baking pan, you can use 2 baking pans, or you can do it in a couple different batches. Cook one set, take it out, let it cool, and then do the next set. So once our kale's all spread out, we're gonna sprinkle our salt and pepper on it. You could add a few other seasonings if you wanna try that. I've used garlic before and sometimes onion powder, but you could try some other stuff. And then finally, we will put it in the oven. Ask a parent to put your kale chips in the oven. Be super careful because it will be very hot. And then we wait. Don't go too far away because these kale chips cook pretty fast. I set my timer for 5 minutes and then check it really a lot after that 5 minutes. So here's what they look like after 5 minutes. And then just 2 minutes later, this is how much it changed. So you want your kale chips to be just barely turning brown and looking crispy. Now we have to be patient just a little bit more because they are very hot. So we're gonna let them cool for about 5 minutes and then come back and you can taste your kale chips. An important part of Global Gardens is to be brave and taste new things. So once your kale chips are cool, you can have a taste and see what you think. It's crispy, it's salty, has a little something else going on, but I hope you like your kale chips. Even if you take the first bite and aren't really sure, sometimes that's just your tongue being surprised by the flavor. So try another one and see what you think. I hope you really like it and can make these soon.